Bukit Timah Station is the former station of Kereta Api Tanah Melayu, Malaysian rail operator in Bukit Timah in the middle of Singapore. There was a time where train passed through the station carrying passengers and cargoes. Singapore is the 21st smallest sovereign country in the world with little need of an expensive heavy rail network. Then how does this rail line used to be here in the first place? Let's take a stroll to the green space surrounding former Bukit Timah station and learn of how the station is all left as one of the remnants of a former railway line linking Singapore and the rest of Malaya. To understand the reason why an expensive rail line was constructed in such a small state, let's take a digging in the library. Whoa, look at this old map, Johnny Harris. When Singapore was taken over by Stamford Raffles in 1819, Raffles envisioned Singapore as a global entry port built in European style, from a collection of fishing villages along the coast into a well-planned port city. Yes, Singapore is a planned city from the start. When Malaya became the largest exporter of tin in the middle of the 19th century, Singapore has developed itself the largest tin smelting industry in the world. British imposed the export duty for exporting tin ore, but tin ingots, which already been smelting in Singapore, can be exported with lower export duty. And European settlers insist on building a railway line across Singapore as the river and wharves of Keppel and Tanjong Pagar were already full of ships. According to Frank Swettenham, a British colonial officer, railways are a public project belong to Malayan governments with public services in mind rather than making a profit. The rationale why Swettenham said so is because the ships were no longer sufficient to accommodate the growing trade of tin and later in the century rubber, plus the economic peril that might be happen if the private for-profit steamship operation throughout the coast ceased to operate, devastating the local economy. And there was a plan to construct a rail across the island since the 1860s, but the issue of financing and also the limited number of cargo and passenger in the island delayed the project. After separated rail network in Malaysia was slowly consolidated in the late 19th century, then the interest to link Singapore with Malaya with rail system increased. After long discussion, delays and financial hiccups, the rail construction started in 1900 with $1 million Malayan grant from the government of Straits Settlement. The railway line completed 3 years later in 1903. The first rail line in Singapore connecting Kranji in the northern part and Tank Road in the city, which is today located next to Clemenceau Avenue, which is located west of Fort Canning. In the year 1907, the rail was extended from Tank Road to Pasir Panjang, where all the bigger ships wharf. Then Singapore Railway was sold to the government of Federated Malay States in 1918 to be consolidate with the rest of Malayan rail network as Federated of Malay States Railway (FMS Railway), which is the predecessor of Kereta Api Tanah Melayu (KTM), which is today's Malaysia's heavy rail operator. According to Van Cuylenburg, based on the writing in Maya Jamal's book Old Singapore, there is a superstition where a train passed through a bridge, for example former rail bridge in Orchard Road and this bridge in Bukit Timah Road. All street traffic below will stop due to folk belief of unluckiness when someone walk under another person walking upstairs. Despite this superstition, the rail line proved a success as an important cargo and passenger line across the island, and most importantly, an important cargo and passenger link between Singapore and the rest of British Malaya, especially after the completion of Johor Causeway in the year 1923, and officiating ceremony happened less than a year later. But for now, let's just save Causeway story for another video, okay? As As the port city of Singapore continues to grow, there was a need for a bigger railway station since Tank Road Station is too small to accommodate increasing number of passengers and cargoes, and there was an attempt to rebuild Tank Road Station, but the effort was abandoned to solve issues. Remember Fort Canning next to it. Thus, a new railway line was constructed to divert the rail traffic from Tank Road to newly built station in Tanjong Pagar. Thus, Bukit Timah became the junction of this old railway line and the new railway lines, making Bukit Timah the oldest operated rail station in Singapore. However, the present station building was constructed in the year 1932 with the new railway line, as the old 1902 station located away from the 1932 rail alignment. The railway line witnessed Japanese intrusion during World War II, racial riots, and also communist insurgencies. But those historical events, were little impactful to the rail service compared to what happened to the railway after 1965. After the separation of Singapore from Malaysia in 1965, a thorny issue has occurred. The railway line was owned by Malayan Railway, which is fully owned by Malaysian government, and newly independent Singapore has little or no say on the rail operation within the island and even the land where the rail alignment was. Passenger and cargo need to clear custom and immigration, tedious of border formality. Immigration and custom control has been set up in Tanjong Pagar, the rail terminus near the city, and Woodlands in the north, which is the nearest station with Malaysia. Bukit Timah, located in the middle of the island, is not suitable for immigration and custom operation, and as a result, Bukit Timah ceased to be a passenger station because of this legal complexity. Instead, Bukit Timah was operated as a switching station, receiving neither cargo nor passengers. According to New Nation newspaper, on the 30th of April 1979, there was a proposal to shut down the rail between Singapore and Johor once and for all. Once the rail to the newly built port in Pasir Gudang, about 30 km east of Johor Bahru, was completed, but the rail operation still continued nevertheless. In 1990, the new agreement, or POA, Point of Agreement, was signed between Singapore and Malaysia to solve the rail complexity issues, but it was still problematic because, look here, it's still complicated. In simple terms, there were a disagreement on immigration location, whether it should be in Tanjong Pagar or should be in Woodlands, where Malaysia threatened to terminate the rail operation altogether. The disagreement caused the strained diplomatic relation between the land of salt and the land of subsidized sugar for decades to come. Finally, a negotiation breakthrough was reached in year 2010 when Malaysia agreed to shut down the rail line with the compensation in the form of joint venture development with Khazanah and also Temasek Holding, these two sovereignly owned corporations. And as a replacement, a brand new RTS, rapid transit system that everybody's waiting for, will link Woodland North MRT station to Johor Bahru, scheduled to open in 2026, together with the proposal of high-speed railway between Kuala Lumpur and Singapore, which has been suspended due to cost issues. At last, the heavy rail operation in Singapore came to an end. The last KTM train leaving Tanjong Pagar on 30th of June 2011, passing through Bukit Timah station with cheering crowd holding up their hand with the last passengers on the train. And afterward, land surrounding the rail was returned to Singapore and also returned to the nature, awaiting for the next fate. In the land-scarce country, there was a debate of future plan of the open space available after KTM line was shut down. There were some suggestions to redevelop the land for public housing, HDB, or a brand new township. There were suggestions to preserve the greenery of a former rail alignment as an eye relief of Admiralty High in Singapore, higher building and higher food prices. But at the end, the latter prevailed. Rail corridor, which is an alignment of former rail, has been gazetted as the park connector in the year 2015, linking southern parts of Mount Faber and Kent Ridge with northern parks such as Bukit Timah and MacRitchie Reservoir. In July 2022, fully restored Bukit Timah Station was reopened to the public as a recreation and historical area. Although as a historian, not sleep historian, but the history researcher myself, I might say that the restoration of the station might be overdone. Let's make a comparison. Here is an example of contemporary British Malaya era station built around the similar time, former station of Tanjung Malim Perak, which is today rented as a night diner. Okay, let's make a comparison. Do you think Bukit Timah station is restored too gloriously? If you want to visit Bukit Timah Station, you can ride MRT Downtown Line to King Albert Park Station. Take exit A and turn left. Walk about 200 meters and you will see the entrance, or you can arrive by bus via Bukit Timah Road from if you come from the city, or Dan An Road if you come from Bukit Panjang. There is no public car park seen around. It is better to arrive here by public transport, or you can just jog or cycle through the rail corridor to come here, which is an obvious option. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you learned something new about Bukit Timah while enjoying the greenery within the bustling country. Thank you so much again and see you in the next video.